Hello and welcome to the latest episode of The Hex with John Arnold, Armand Kafai, and Daniel Robertson. Of course, as I always say, give the thumbs up if you're watching us on YouTube. Subscribe if you're listening to us everywhere, and let us know in the comments what you think about our analysis of the U.S. men's national team roster today. Was it bad form for Mauricio Pochettino to not individually reach out to his roster snubs? We got CONCACAF Champions Cup final, the Liguilla to recap, and two more MLS coaches have gotten the axe this week. So we're going to talk about that today on The Hex. It was officially announced on Tuesday as we're recording on Wednesday afternoon. It was leaked over the weekend. The U.S. men's national team roster is out. A few surprises that we'll get into. Let's go to John first. What is one change you would have made from Mauricio Pochettino's 26-man World Cup roster?
I would take off Austin Trusty, sorry, man. And I would put on Tanner Tessman. I think that when you look at what he did with Leon this season, it not only the fact that he gives you central midfield depth, but also the fact that Leon played him as a makeshift center back. He has the height. You know, when you're talking about putting together a World Cup roster, I just think that you are looking for players who can do a little bit of, not everything, but can do multiple things. Mm-hmm. And Tessman, I think, fits in that mold. Now, we don't really know if the injury that ended his season with Leon is keeping him off the roster. But if it's not, then I would still take a center back off and stick Aiden Morris in there. I just think that you left yourself relatively thin at center midfield. I know I'm not the first person to say that, and I won't be the last. You know, like, this does blow over if Tyler Adams stays healthy all summer, if Weston McKennie stays healthy all summer, and nobody gets a suspension. But, like, look, things happen at a World Cup, and that's why you want to bring in players who can do multiple things, because Tanner Tessman's not third or fourth or fifth on your center back depth chart. Just like, you know, Gio Reyna is not fourth or fifth or sixth on your central midfield depth chart. You know, Pochettino mentioned that, oh, maybe you could play him there. That's not what you need. But, like, things happen, and sometimes you get in a situation where you're like, I need somebody who can do something a little different right now. And I think that Tessman would have given you that if he's healthy. If not, I would stick Morris in there. So I'm not going off the board too far, but that's the change I would make. Too many defenders for me. You don't need them.
Yeah, and it's might be the World Cup of attrition, where it is whoever stays the healthiest and whoever can keep the injury bug away the longest. And it does feel like there's a little bit of a single point of failure with one or two players, where if something bad happens, it's an issue. Armand, are you thinking along the same lines, or is there a different change you'd make?
Yeah, I mean, John took the words like straight out of my mouth. Great job, John. That's why USA Today hired you. It's a situation where we've talked about this quite a bit, to where this World Cup could be, again, we kind of joke about it, but the load management World Cup, there's one extra game with that round of 32 match. You're playing in, obviously, like, it's summer everywhere, right? Like when the World Cup's being played, but it's really hot in the U.S. And
that's not true. It is not summer everywhere.
Well, Seattle's going to be. I was going to say, when you're playing in Seattle and L.A., I'm not so sure about that. But I hear.
For instance, it's not summer in Chile.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Wait, it's going to be hot, right? Yeah. And it's going to be hot.
It's going to be taxing. It's going to be a taxing World Cup.
It's going to be a long tournament, and the thing is, it feels like, now this is going to be I made this analogy on another pod, so, like, stay with me on this. But
we get the sloppy seconds here.
Not only is he asking us for sloppy seconds, he's like, and please listen to me explain this.
But
let's hear it.
But it seems like the U.S., their lineup is very San Antonio Spursy, where San Antonio Spurs in the Western Conference Finals rely on their starting five a lot, right? Their bench is pretty much non-existent, etc. Sure. The U.S., when it comes down to not bringing a guy like Tanner Tessman, you are relying on Tyler Adams and Weston McKennie to be healthy all throughout. And if they are not healthy, it's kind of
like we're screwed either way if these guys aren't playing well. So,
but also, if you have Tanner Tessman in there, then you can make a change. If Tyler Adams needs a break, you can plug and play Tanner Tessman into there. And yes, there will be a drop-off, yes. But is it as big of a drop-off as if you're going to a guy like Christian Roldan or Sebastian Berhalter, or as Pochettino kind of went down the line of Malik Tillman, who, in my opinion, is more of an attack-minded player? No, I don't think the drop-off would have been as much if you bring in a guy like Tessman. But because you don't, and you instead talk about how you put other defenders in there, or etc. To me, it's just bizarre. And John, I think you said it really, like, elegantly. Tessman can play center back. He's done it in an emergency setting. He's a versatile player. for me, that's the biggest change. Why not bring Testman? And for me, it was between Miles Robinson and Austin Trusty. For me, like again, like I just don't understand why you have Testman is not like a one-trick pony. He's versatile.
But again, man, if he's injured and Pochettino just shut down he said basically like as soon as the questions started at the press conference yesterday, he said like if they're not here, I'm not talking about them. It's not fair and it's not respectful to the guys that are here. I don't totally I get it. And I think if you're Pochettino, like I think it's totally fair to say like, hey, I'm here announcing the roster. I don't want to spend 30 minutes talking about why didn't this guy make it? Why didn't this guy make it? I mean, because you can, I mean, especially when you name a 55-man provisional, you can get into that game of like, oh, what about this guy? Oh, why is Chris Brady the third goalkeeper instead of Patrick Schultz? Like you can get into that game, right? So I can understand him saying like, hey, let's talk about the guys that are actually here. But I do think it would have been helpful if that if there had been like an explanation if Testman is injured, like you know what,
right,
he wasn't going to make it, or we thought he'd only be good for the knockout stages, so like that would have been helpful, but we just don't have that information.
Yeah, well, I'm going a little bit off the beaten path here with my take of the change I would have made to the roster. And my change is that I would have cap-tied Brian Gutierrez a long time ago. Because here's and let me get into this for a second. We talked a few weeks ago about Diego Luna versus Zendejas, and I think all of us said one, Zendejas should make the roster. You could put both of them on there. I said I'm fine if you take Zendejas and don't take Luna. I don't have a problem with leaving Luna off the roster. The problem that I have is, let's go back to the 2025 Gold Cup. You took Luna and you made the decision to say we like Luna instead of Gutierrez. That's the guy that we have earmarked at this position as like the young number 10. And Gutierrez then says, okay, fine, no problem, but I'm going to go play for Mexico. Understandably, if I was him, I would make that same decision. I'd say, okay, well, you're kind of making the choice right now that Luna's ahead of me. I'm not going to make this World Cup roster. Maybe I can make it with Mexico. What does he do? I know it's Ghana's C team, but he scores a nice goal last week against Ghana's C team. He's one of the best players of the season in Liga MX. And your Mauricio Pochettino, who clearly has valued that because he brought in Zendejas. So I realize this is a little bit circular here, but when I'm looking at it and I want to go a little bit off the path of maybe the take that everyone's saying, I'm saying if you didn't take Luna, you kind of screwed up by choosing Luna over Zendejas last year at the Gold Cup, John.
Well, you know what's interesting about the Gutierrez is I think we've, like a lot of us in this kind of space, which I definitely am in, of like covering Latin American kids and doing dual nationals. And like, I think we've always waited for the one where the panic was quote unquote worth it. And I think like Mexico has kind of had that moment, or like things are kind of dawning with Zendejas and with Ricardo Pepi. But like Gutierrez would be the first one that the U.S. quote unquote lost, right? Mm-hmm. That is certainly the first one that would make a World Cup roster. So it could be interesting because I don't think we really talked about it. It was sort of an under the radar, like when you think about like, oh, Jonathan Gonzalez or something like that, or even like going back farther, like, oh, Edgar Castillo, Joe Corona, like these guys who were like kind of everyone was wondering which way they were going to lean, and they represented both in friendlies. Julian Araujo, right, who also could make the roster for Mexico. Richie Ledesma, like, but right. Like, I don't think we talked about Gutierrez, maybe because he was so young when he switched over. But in a way, I wonder if that's like going to be the new normal, where like these kids are switching at such a young age, or deciding at such a young age because the scouting is so good, that we could see more of the one that got away actually matter. Because I think a lot of times the dual national panics have been wasted on players that just haven't reached the ceiling, right? Which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. All the guys I mentioned have had great professional careers. Some of them are still in the mix to make World Cups now and in the future. But it would be fascinating if he's the one that gets away for real for the U.S., because I don't think that there was that much hand-wringing.
Yeah, and he's the same age as Diego Luna, right? So you made the choice. Gutierrez or Luna. Gutierrez gets called up to Mexico. You don't call up Luna. Another thing making the rounds in the news, speaking of a guy like Diego Luna who didn't get called up, I'm sure he was very disappointed by that, is that Mauricio Pochettino from some of the different commentators out there took some flack for not individually reaching out and calling roster snubs, players that maybe were very involved in the run-up to this that didn't get called up. And apparently Jurgen Klinsmann left voicemails for people that he didn't call up in the past. I don't know. The quote from Pochettino, though, was when I was that he had yesterday. When I was a player, when I didn't make the roster, I didn't want the coach to call me. The players who didn't make the roster, they didn't want to hear me say I apologize. What are you going to say? Am I going to lie? I care. Do you know why I care? Because during the past 2 weeks, I didn't sleep. And today, I can't enjoy the 26 guys that are in front of me because I'm thinking of the players that are out. So, is it bad form for Pochettino to not reach out to the roster snubs? And I'll get us started here because I think it's not a problem at all. I have no problem with his quotes. I think it's totally fine. I think it's a non-story for him to not individually reach out to the players. He has been cut from he said on the Fox show yesterday, hey, I didn't make it in 98. I didn't, and I got called in to 2002. I kept working. Diego Luna can keep working. He can get in there. I've interviewed for plenty of jobs that I didn't get. And honestly, I don't really want them to call me. I realize it's not exactly the same thing. I don't really want them to call me to tell me I didn't get the job. Yeah, you're frustrated by an email. Unless it's a very specific situation, I would not have wanted them to call me. Okay, I didn't get the job. I'm mad at you. I'm going to stew about this. I don't want to talk to you right now. I don't have a problem with it. Am I off base on this?
You know what, man? I had that same perspective. That's how I felt initially. And I don't know if I've been influenced by some of the people who have been upset, but I think really giving it more thought, to me, it's a missed opportunity for Pochettino. Not necessarily. He said, like, oh, these guys don't want an apology. I don't think you should give them an apology. You're the head coach of the men's national team. Sure. You're perhaps the most respected head coach the men's national team has ever had. I think it would go a long way if he called. And he also, like, a totally fair point that I think he made was, like, where does it end? People want me to call. And he didn't say this, like, directly, but, like, his implication was, like, people want me to call Diego Luna. Well, why wouldn't I then call Tanner Tessman? Why wouldn't I then call Patrick Schulte? Why wouldn't I then call that? And you
it's like
keep
inviting
going
people
down
to
the list,
a wedding,
right?
It's like, who makes
at a certain point, you need a cutoff. But I do think that he could have just taken the provisional list, taken 2 hours out of his time, especially with the time zone, if he's based in Europe, late in the night, and just gone down the list and made calls or asked his assistants to help. And I don't think the message is, I'm sorry. I don't think the message is, if you want to be mad at me, be mad at me. I think it's, hey, I'm reaching out to you right now. Let you know you didn't make it. If you can do this, and this in the future,
sure,
I'm sure that I will be watching you on TV at the 2030 World Cup. I'm sure that you will be able to jump to Europe. If you do this, I think that you... And look, we're talking about being genuine. We're talking about being honest. I don't even know that he has to be honest in those calls, right? He's breaking bad news. You can just say, like, hey, look, I don't think you have to get into it. I think you have a little script. I think you do it, and then you say, hey, best of luck. Anything else, feel free. You have my number. You can always message me. Boom, click, you're done. Because yes, it's not going to be productive to sit for 30 minutes on the phone with a guy explaining over and over again, I needed this guy, not this guy. I need this set of skills, not this set of skills. I wanted you to do this one time, you didn't do it. Like, that's not going to be productive. But I think if you just have that message, Armand, then it lands in a way where it's like, wow. But I don't know, man. That's a little like, that's maybe it's, Daniel thinks that's too classic.
Yeah, I don't agree. But where do you land, Armand?
I don't think it's a big deal, but I would have called. If that makes sense. I think people are just kind of making this a big deal because I don't think Pochettino's won himself any like fans or anything like that over the last, I would probably say, since he's with the national team. I don't think it's a big deal. I think emailing is fine. I personally, like, I get where his perspective is coming from. If it was me though, I would have just taken what John said and said, hey, listen, like, you didn't make the roster, blah, 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 or it's like someone else, much more elegant way of saying it, and then I had something ready, done, boom. Because, I mean, at least you're hearing it from the guy. I really don't think it's a big deal, to be honest with you. I don't, like, there's more important things to worry about than, oh, did he call a guy or did he not call a guy? Because you also can't be like, hey, because... Also, I think, do we all expect Pochettino not to be a part of the setup after the 2026?
Of course not.
Very surprised.
Exactly. If I think it was someone that maybe had more of a connection to the national team, if it maybe was a guy like Berhalter who's worn the jersey and also has been a part of the program for quite a bit, I think those are two different perspectives. But for Pochettino, this is just a job for him for the next. He wants to win a World Cup.
But that's what I'm saying, man. That's what I'm saying is that he doesn't have to be like, I want you in the picture, Diego Luna. I want you in the picture, whoever. I think it's just like it was an opportunity for him to say, I know that I will be seeing you in the biggest stage soon. And like, look, maybe that doesn't work if like he didn't cut him, obviously, but like if it's Tim Ream and he's like 100 years old, it's sure, okay, obviously not. I think like the other kind of like, maybe this is a hot take. I don't think the snubs are good. And like you have to have something to talk about after a roster. People have to have something to be frustrated about. Like as much like we all came. I think we all like Diego Luna. I like him as a guy. I like him as a player. We all kind of came to the conclusion a couple weeks ago that like you could see a situation where you reasonably leave him home. That's what happened. Like the snubs, it's not like a 2014 where Donovan's not on the roster.
Right.
It's a scandal and it's ridiculous. It's not like some other countries
the
where
snubs are like okay, it's
the Liga next player of the season. Like,
right.
Okay, that's fine.
Or like Xavier Gozo, if people want to stretch that far.
Right, a 19-year-old who has zero caps, man. I mean, that's the thing is that like I did an article for USA Today because we have to have the content. We want like it is an interesting discussion, like who got snubbed, and like it's for me it was Tessman, Morris, Luna, Patrick Schulte. But like when you're like naming like goalkeeper, I mean, it's like the snubs are not that good, which could be good news for the U.S., right? Hey, Pochettino got it right. It could also mean this player pool ain't deep enough for what you really want to achieve. So
it sneaks up quick, but the first pre-World Cup friendly for the men's national team is on Sunday, 2:30 p.m. Central Time, kickoff in Charlotte. USA versus Senegal, a Senegal team in a group with France, a very difficult group. I think it's France. I forget their exact. France and Norway, and then Iraq. I think France, Norway, and Iraq. Yep. This is a team that made the knockout round in Qatar. A very strong team with a lot of names from Europe that we know. Armand, let's talk USA Senegal for a second. What's one thing that you want to see in the game on Sunday afternoon?
Will Mauricio Pochettino start like his A-team lineup? Or is he going to continue down this path of tinkering? I think there is a world where he does play a different lineup every World Cup game. Yeah. And I think that's very likely because the situations are different, right? Against a team like Australia, who we know is going to sit in the lower block, okay, maybe you need a little bit more offensive creativity or some guys who can hold up the ball and win the ball high up the pitch in order to kind of break down those blocks. When it comes to the Senegal lineup, I want to see, first off, is he going to pair Tyler Adams and Weston McKennie together? They've only played twice under Pochettino together, and that was the Nations League games,
which they won, right?
Lost.
Oh, not the ones
at 2025, and they both lost.
Okay, gotcha.
In California. So I want to see how they pair up together because we haven't seen them pair up together in this kind of system with the back three. I also want to see where is Tim Weah fit in this team?
Yeah,
because you have a guy like Dest and Weah. And
you got a lot of outside backs. You got a lot of outside backs.
Weah was playing that with a wing back role. Does Weah come inside now in pairs with Pulisic? Where does Weah land within this? I think we have an idea of the lineup, but it's like, okay, does Dest go on the bench? How does this all work? I'm interested to see how those two pair up. And I want to see the entire lineup basically, but I want to see who his center back trio is. Because Pochettino plays
I don't think you're going to get many answers. I don't think you're going to get many answers on that one.
But it's like who pairs with Weah, or if it's Dest, who pairs with these guys, who's covering them, etc. There's a lot of combinations I think he could go out with. I just want to see like what his ideas are for some of these combinations, essentially.
I have two thoughts on what you said, Armand. And the first one is you mentioned earlier that this is the Spurs that are only going to be playing 11 players and not making any changes.
I said they're going to be dependent. They're going to be dependent on those guys.
And now you're saying you think he might play a different lineup in every game.
Those things are not mutually exclusive.
I know. I'm just giving you noise. Weah, I would have a huge problem if Weah was an outside back with this team with the way that he called in the roster. I would have a big problem with that because I think that why then, okay, like we said a minute ago, okay, leave off Austin Trusty. Well, if you're planning on playing Weah at outside back, then why do you need 5 other outside backs? One thing I'm watching for, just one really quickly, John, is I just want to see a confident performance in goal and good communication between the goalkeeper and the back line. Because for me, that was the scariest part of those March friendlies, is that there was a lot of miscommunication and a lot of unconfidence looking in goal. Whoever's playing there, whether it's Freeze or Turner, whoever, I just want to see confidence and good communication in the back line.
Yeah, I actually spoke with Tim Howard about that in a conversation you can watch on the USA Today YouTube on Sports Seriously. What am I going to be watching in this USA-Senegal game? Probably not the USA-Senegal game. Look, like these friendlies, nobody's fighting to make the roster. You made it. Are people fighting for a spot? Pochettino's probably already got his lineup pretty pretty set up, right? So overall, I just think that these games are important for the US specifically because March didn't go well. I think you want like one performance that is a draw or a win to get the vibes going, to feel good, to feel confident. But I'm kind of interested in these pre-tournament friendlies about the teams that didn't make it. I think we can learn more, I guess. Like Costa Rica is having a total chaos moment with like one of their players was at a bar and his car got shut up, and they said he wasn't involved in this fight, but he got kicked off the team. And like, there's just a lot going on. But like, what do they look like under a new manager? Nicaragua has a new manager. They're flying to South Africa, and then they fly somewhere
It's crazy.
in South America. Trinidad and Tobago plays Korea in Salt Lake City, and then they go somewhere in Europe, I want to say. So like, how are these CONCACAF teams that didn't make it? How's that middle class of CONCACAF responding to missing out on the World Cup? And what can they do to get better is something that I'm intrigued by in these friendlies that otherwise don't enthuse me because, like, honestly, man, when you think back to 2022, who did the U.S. play in 2022? Either of you? Before the tournament. What were their last games? Nothing. Yeah. Who did Mexico play before 2018?
Yeah. Nothing.
You do not remember these games. As long as no one gets hurt, these games poof into the ether. So I'll be watching. Hopefully we can take some tactical things, but come on.
For probably the last time for at least 6 weeks, let's talk some club soccer one more time here before we get full into the national team. CONCACAF Champions Cup, Saturday night in Toluca. Toluca versus Tigres, the final. Not necessarily the final that we wanted. I would have loved MLS versus Liga MX, but the two Liga MX teams won out in the end. Two teams that didn't make the Liguilla final, which we'll talk about in a minute. But John, what is kind of one thing you are looking for from Toluca versus Tigres on Saturday night?
I'm looking at the Toluca attack and who links with Paulinho, because we know that he can score, we know that he can finish, but Alexis Vega is not on this. He's with the Mexico national team. Jesus Gallardo with the Mexico national team. So I really think
fight anyone.
Will Paulinho fight? I mean, maybe. So I think that's maybe the key for Toluca in this game. The crowd is always really good in Toluca, while a lot of people, I think, understandably are sort of starting to forget about the club game and like the CCC specifically. It's been a minute since the semifinals. Toluca fans will be there. So I think that'll be good. We mentioned on our show a couple of weeks ago that like they kind of punted into Liguilla, they did not. But at the same time, you lose both games without scoring when you have this high-powered attack. Yes, they scored 4 against LAFC in the second leg. That one kind of got away from LAFC. Tigres, I think, will be much more disciplined. I think that they're a much more... and it's also a one-off game, right? They didn't have that first leg where they knew, okay, we lost the first leg, we're going to have to go out and attack it, So I think that's the biggest thing I'm watching is just how Toluca is able to link and create chances without Alexis Vega. They did it for a lot of the year because of his injury, but I still think that those absences are notable, and Paulinho needs the ball and he needs to score, and it's been a minute since he was doing that, except for 2 stoppage times garbage goals against LAFC.
Paulinho is off to the Portuguese national team after this, correct?
He didn't make it.
He didn't make it. Wow, I didn't realize that. Okay. So this is his last game for a while, Armand?
For me, it's how do these guys and how do these teams respond after a 20-day layoff? Like, essentially, they both teams last played on May 9th or May 10th. And to go in from not playing for almost 3 weeks to a final is a crazy ramp up when it comes to intensity. I would be interested to see if the game maybe starts off a little hesitant as these guys try to get back into some sort of like match fitness, because again, you can do all the friendlies you want, etc. But to go from not playing for 3 weeks to a final is, I think, insane. And I think it's gonna be a slower start to the game. I expect, again, both teams kind of trying to ease into it, and from there, it'll just be, okay, who can acclimate faster to the game speed and et cetera. And I think Toluca has obviously shown that they have a big home field advantage when they play at their stadium. So for me, it's just how do these guys shrug off the rust? Because there is going to be rust in some capacity. It's just how quickly can they shrug it off and get into playing. Yeah, I'm hugging that.
What is your hand on?
Right now.
Yeah, your arm is just floating there. There we go. No, For me, the line that comes into it thinking about this game, I'm going to go back to professional wrestling for a second, and I'm going to think 2 years ago, Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania finished the story. That was the whole thing against Roman Reigns. He needed to finish his story. To me, this is, can Toluca finish the story of arguably the best Liga MX team we have seen maybe ever. Because if they win this, I don't count this year's Liguilla. We've already said they punted it. They've won the last two Liguillas with basically the same team. And if they win their first and I know they won it, 15 years ago or something like that. But in the current setting, their first CONCACAF Champions Cup, getting to Club World Cup, Toluca of all teams, getting to the Club World Cup. And I love that Club World Cup is on the line now. I think it adds so much more than it ever did in the past. And it sets a club financially for years to come. That's why this game is so important for everyone involved.
And gives you the international bragging rights, right?
You
like,
can
yes,
sign
the
players,
money, the
yes.
money's massive, but I think like the fact, especially in Mexico, where like a club like Tigres has been and did a great job at the Club World Cup, but
Yes.
like they're not. They're a domestic team. Like they have won international title.
Right.
If they can add to it, that would also be massive. So the same deal, kind of like you're saying, like they're not necessarily finished the story in the same way. But yeah, that carrot of the Club World Cup is a tasty one.
Yeah, so yeah, finishing the story for Toluca of is this maybe the best team we've ever seen in Mexico? Because and they don't have to get broken up. You win this, you keep the money, you can keep everyone together, and then of course on the other side, can we see Gignac lift the Continental Trophy in his last game for Tigres? I mean, that's the story.
Finish that story.
So
okay,
finish that story as well. So let's see.
You think Gignac is more? He's like the Roman Reigns.
Yes, of course he's the Roman Reigns. He's
the big dog.
The
difference is that I think people like Gignac. He's likable.
Yeah, everyone likes Roman Reigns. People cheer for.
People didn't used to like Roman Reigns.
People love Roman Reigns, buddy. Trust me. The Liguilla final on Sunday night. The first leg was 0-0. The second leg was cagey as well, with Cruz Azul coming from behind to win it at the end. Rotundi, old trusty there, puts the ball in the net and wins it for La Máquina. John, it's tough to like super analyze this one again with just because of how the Liguilla was. So I'm gonna kind of ask like, what is the legacy of this trophy for Cruz Azul? Because this is a team that I remember when they won Liga MX like 5 years ago, and it was coming off of kind of COVID, and it was their first trophy in decades, right? What is kind of the legacy of this one coming off of Triple C last year?
That's it. That's the legacy. Is that not necessarily that it carries on from CONCACAF Champions Cup, but it's that the fans could celebrate it because
in
2021 it really wasn't safe. The COVID, especially in Mexico at that time, the pandemic was still raging. The vaccines were being rolled out. If I'm correct, they couldn't go celebrate. And then this year we see on Sunday people flocking to the Angel, and blocks and blocks and blocks of celebrating fans, and that one in 2021 counted, but it had the asterisk of, well, it didn't feel like a title, not because of anything the players were doing,
right?
And not like the NBA where it's like, oh, this wasn't competitive, but this one had the asterisk by it because of what happened with the Liguilla. I don't think it's an accident that the two teams that made it were not heavily affected by the Mexico call-ups. Pumas were missing Memo Martinez, Cruz Azul missing Eric Lira. So both were missing one player. Lira is definitely a more important player than Memote Martinez, but Cruz Azul had the depth to overcome the absences. And I think that's what this squad is. It's a very balanced team. They have good players in attack. They have good players in defense. The goalkeeper looked horrible for most of the past tournament. And look, like their manager got fired before the last weekend of the regular season, and a club legend comes and takes over and leads them to glory. So I think the legacy is that this is one that Cruz Azul fans can enjoy. It's their 10th title all time, Armand, but like the first one that most people, like even of our generation, like, I think we all, not that we're Cruz Azul fans, but like we would have been too young to celebrate in 97. And if you've been waiting your whole life, they win in 21, you can't go out to party and celebrate and even like hug family members, right? And now you can. That to me is the legacy. Yeah, the asterisk will be by it. I don't think they'll care.
I was disappointed in Pumas. I thought that their
poor guys.
I thought that their performance and the way Efrain Juarez has kind of set up this team all throughout Liguilla has been this kind of very hey, we're gonna like kind of see out results. Basically, we're gonna see it out. We had the tiebreaker in that America game. If you look at all their stats, if you look at the way that they were playing, like to me, again, that's your style. That's the way you want to play as a number one overall seed. I think there was a bit of just kind of like, hey, if you make one mistake, you're in trouble, and you don't have that tiebreaker to lean on anymore.
Yeah.
So
It was Kaler.
right.
It was Kaler and Inshallah at that point after they took the lead.
You're forced to go up. You're forced to try to attack. And what happens? And Tuna gets that just red card really late in the game, just that really weird challenge. And then Rotundi scores 4 minutes later. When I was watching that game, it felt like Pumas never wanted to be the protagonist, which is fine. You don't have to be the protagonist, but
Do you think it's anti-Liga MX? Like that's not usually what we see in Mexican soccer.
Yes, exactly. They basically were like, hey, we're going to set up in this low block. We're going to defend, and we're going to try to create opportunities late on. But again, it's another, like that first leg, keep in mind, their like XG was like 0.2, which is like insane.
The first leg was an abomination.
They did not look
rough,
forward to attack at all. Second leg, what is it? 0.57.
I don't disagree with you, but funny enough, Wiki's going to stay on a Cruz Azul, and Efrain Juarez is rumored for Anderlecht. Could you see him coaching in Europe?
Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
The way his style sets up is much more. Hey, we're a low we're kind of like trying to start off relegation. We're playing against these bigger teams, etc. We like can absorb and go. But in Liga MX, it's just it's very non-Liga MX to say the least.
I haven't spoken with him, Daniel, but my theory is that Juarez came because of romantic reasons. Came up at Puma, saw the opportunity. They were backing his project. He asked for Navas. They did it. He asked for a couple other players. They brought him. And I think he'll leave now. But I think he's always been more internationally focused, working on Ronnie Dyla's squads, as an assistant, including in Belgium, which is why there's the Anderlecht connection now. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see that.
Didn't do anything to hurt his resume at all.
No, but also didn't do anything. I mean, like the fans bought in because they had success. And look, they were super leader. They only lost 2 games in the regular season. Like they were a good team, but then there's also like they fell short in the final. They got knocked out really early in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, and I think like it seems incomplete. I think he's got 6 more months of contract, and you kind of like, oh, it'd be great if you would give it another shot and go for a trophy. But if Anderlecht comes calling, I think he'll answer.
Of course. Wrapping it up, let's talk about MLS in our last segment because we are into the break for the World Cup. MLS will come back in July. And almost a quarter of the coaches in the league have been let go heading into the World Cup break. Phil Neville, the 6th coach on Monday. Bradley Carnell announced on Wednesday as the 7th coach to get fired. The Union won 4-10 this season after winning the Supporter Shield last year. Phil Neville leaves Portland with 27 wins, 31 losses, 24 draws, 500 record, basically. Armand, which firing do you see as more justified?
Phil Neville, man. You're a guy who you had Evander at one point, and you go to a 9 seed and then you crash out, right? You don't even make the playoffs last year. Like this is not like, and the project hasn't progressed yet when it comes to Portland. Sure. Like they just haven't progressed. And yes, I understand they have injuries, etc. Were they the 8 seed last year?
They made the postseason.
They were the 8 seed last year.
They didn't make the playoffs. They made the postseason, which is, by the way, noted. If you read the press release, it says they made the playoffs in his first year and they made the postseason in the second year, which I like.
Like it's just like.
Wait. No, I'm sorry.
It's opposite.
They beat RSL in the wild card round and then they lost to San Diego FC.
Right, exactly. It's opposite. Yeah, because they lost to Vancouver in that game.
Yeah.
Where that was supposed to be Vancouver's home game, but they played the home game in Portland. I just don't think the project has progressed enough in Portland. When it comes to like Philadelphia, if we're talking about those two specifically, like I think maybe Carnell, you could make an argument they deserve a little bit of time, but after watching that game against Miami, dude, they had no structure, no like cohesive play. It was just like street soccer, which you could say the same thing about Hoyos as well too in Miami with the way that game was out, but. For me, like it's just Neville and the way that the team has been set up. They haven't been getting the results. Portland is a proud fan base that like they want to be better than like an 8-9 seed.
Okay, man.
You do not want to be better than an 8-9 seed.
Yeah, but don't you want to be better than the last place team in the league with one win from your first 15 games?
Oh, I mean,
I
they're
get
terrible.
right.
It's the battle. It's two not good managers that got fired.
They
So
both had it
deserved
coming
it.
essentially. I think Carnell had it more partly because you've seen this movie before. I
Mhm.
mean, he was great with St. Louis in the first season, and then they fired him I think July 1st, and he had won 3 games through I think 17 or
Crazy
18.
parallel.
And then it kind of happened again. Now, look, I have sympathy for him because I do think that the roster this year is much worse. And a lot of the reliables, like the guys who were on that back line who made it so good, it's essentially team's been gutted, right?
Mhm.
So I have some sympathy for him. But at the same time, if you're last place in MLS after you won the Supporter Shield, 7 months ago, you got to
Yeah.
go. And
Yeah.
I don't think I don't think he was going to be, I don't think he's surprised, right? Like, I don't think any of these guys who are getting the axe are going to be surprised. It's interesting how many coaches have gone, but in a way, like, I sort of welcome it because we talk a lot about MLS not really having the competitive edge, with the playoffs being so bloated that you can almost justify anything. Oh, we made the postseason. Everything's fine. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. And you do end up in the cycle of 8-9, 8-9, 8-9. Philadelphia, you've got the extremes where they were first in the regular season last time around. They're dead last right now, but this is professional sports. The results aren't there.
So I wanted to ask this, Armand, do you think that part of the reason why we're seeing a lot of coaches being let go right now has to do with this weird schedule over the next
Yes,
12 months? Because
1000%.
because if you are bringing on a new coach, you kind of have a 12-month runway, right? Until they're held responsible.
I was literally about to say that 1000% because you also basically have a preseason now too. You have basically 60 days or almost like between
Yep.
now and what that was specific what Austin FC mentioned when they parted ways with Rodo Borrell and Nico Estevez was the fact that you have all these days to kind of build up, have a preseason almost, and have a second part of the year. And you can say, okay, whatever the second part of the year, you then have your little
Sprint
season, and they have their regular season start. This timing allows teams to make a decision and not interrupt the flow of the regular season or what they have. It allows them to look carefully for a role and be like, okay, we hire someone in maybe like mid to late June. Okay, perfect. You have a little bit of a preseason, boom, you're off to races in July to evaluate the roster and then go from there.
Well, and everyone is always trying to protect their own job, right? And if you are a Ned Grabavoy in Portland, what happens if you let your coach go right now? You've protected your job for at least 12 more months because you're going to say, hey, if we bring someone else in, hey, the results over the next 6 months, it's a new coach. What does it matter? Oh, you're going to fire me after the sprint season, which doesn't, it doesn't really mean anything. Oh, now
Portland
we're getting
historically fantastic in sprint seasons.
Actually, yeah, they are. MLS is back, baby. So to me, it's like, okay, it makes also all the sense in the world if you're a GM, which they're always thinking about their jobs and always thinking about how can we deflect blame if things don't go right. It allows them to kind of keep themselves with a little bit of job security and yeah.
But I think also like, and it's not just about social media, but like if you let your coach go with this 2 month break, everything you post on social media, like all of a sudden it's like, there's vibes, there's excitement,
Right.
There's good things.
Right.
Whereas if you don't, everything you post is when are you firing Bradley? When are you firing Neville? Why is it Neville out, Carnell out, whatever, and insert name here. Whereas this, I think, gives the chance to like, you get that refresh button, hope that you get the new coach bounce. And look, like, I don't think that many, but maybe one or two of the guys who are coaching on the World Cup right now.
Yeah.
They could be candidates, man. I'm thinking mainly of Thomas Christensen. Like, I think he's done with Panama after this, whether they have some insane run to the quarterfinals or more likely if they get bounced at the group stage. And that's a guy who's like, speaks English, Spanish, like has been, really understands the region, had some success in the club game before he went to Panama. Like he's just one name where it's like, you could see those guys kind of coming to MLS. I don't think like anyone has a master plan of like, I'm getting Christensen, I got to fire this guy right now. But I do think that like the coaching pool gets interesting. I mean, look, we also know that Pep Guardiola
Yes. I
is
saw
available.
the mock-up of him to the Timbers. That image is going around, and that was hilarious.
That'd be crazy, man. Oh my
But your
god.
candidate pool is big now.
Yeah. Well, do you remember, by the way, when he coached Bayern Munich for the the All-Star game, and he got really pissed in Portland because they were being too physical on the game in Portland? Armand, you gave us an NBA reference earlier with the Spurs. Well, I'll wrap it up with one more NBA reference here. If the national team is going to be like the Spurs, maybe the Union and maybe Bradley Carnell's a little bit of Kenny Atkinson, because who is the team that has underperformed their goal difference the most so far this season? The Philadelphia Union. So if
so is he the one? Analytically, they're winning games.
Analytically, they're like fourth in the table.
Analytically, they're doing great. So vaya con Dios to Bradley Carnell, and vaya con Dios to all of you listening. We will catch you next week on The Hex.